Lindsay Alden.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again. Did you enjoy the first week of LOC action, Frank?
Oh yes, week 1 was everything we hoped for and more. Coming up this episode, a recap of the marquee matchup between the Tuckfords and the Real QB.
We will also be covering the other games that took place this weekend. We will also be revealing this week's Savior and Failure of the Week.
You'll want to stick around for our best and worst waiver pickup this week, our weekly preview and LOC news updates.
Lastly, we'll be talking to Burdettinators head coach Ollie Burdett.
Let's get started with this week's marquee matchup.
Though these two teams are a shell of their former selves, this one was still the game to watch this weekend, as it was the rematch of the Kumar Bowl.
Either the Real QB would further state their claim of the title, or the Tuckfords would get vengeance.
This was a hotly contested game all day long, and it went right down to the wire.
Miles Austin, DeMarco Murray and Josh Brown gave the Tuckfords a 12-point lead going into Monday night, with just Pierre Garçon left to play for the Real QB.
But Pierre Garçon couldn't come up with the goods for the Real QB, and they lost a close one by just 5 points.
A tough loss to take for the current champ. Let's move on to the other games.
ADRZ squared off against Burdettinators in a divisional matchup. One player on each side played in the Thursday night game.
Peyton Manning put up a league record 60 points for Burdettinators, but Eric Decker didn't even manage 4 for ADRZ.
As you can imagine, this one wasn't even close. The good times kept rolling for Burdettinators, and they won 164-83.
Tom's Tyrants took on the Dream Team in what turned out to be a shootout. Both of these teams nearly combined for 300 points.
But it was Tom's Tyrants who came away with the highest proportion of those points, despite having 2 players score less than 2. This finished 159-136.
Bare Necessities clashed with Forge Flyers this week, in what was another close divisional game. This one was pretty close after the early games.
Forge Flyers had some good performances in the Monday night games though, and just managed to outpace Bare Necessities.
Lastly, Gridiron Gang faced the CNAN in the only non-divisional matchup in week 1. It was fairly close for much of the weekend, but near the end CNAN just started to pull away.
Gridiron Gang battled back slightly, but only to achieve a respectable score, as this one was just 2 out of reach. CNAN won 113-88.
Now let's look at our Savior and Failure of the Week.
This week's Savior is none other than Burdettinators quarterback Peyton Manning, who essentially single-handedly won this game with a 60-point performance.
And this week's Failure is Stephen Ridley. The Real QB only lost by 5, and Ridley only put up 2.6. Ridley fumbled the victory away for them here.
Let's move on to the best and worst waiver pickups this week.
My pickup of the week, Lindsay, is Julian Edelman by Burdettinators. This guy had a great game last week, and when you have Tom Terrific throwing to you, good things will happen.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Frank, and go with Joyce Bell. This guy had a monster game, and figures to be the goal line back, great ad by Gridiron Gang.
I'm going to give you my worst now, and that's Fred Jackson by the Tuckfords. This guy has lost a step, and once CJ gets going will do nothing. Bad move here.
I agree that's bad, but I think Jerome Simpson by ADRZ is worse. This guy is on a run-heavy team, and has Patterson looking over his shoulder. Not a good move.
Oh well, we will see how they pan out. Let's move on to the weekly previews. The Real QB takes on division rival the Dream Team this week, and it could be a very good game.
Both of these teams are still looking for their first win, so you know it's going to be a dogfight. That's the opposite of this game, where both teams will be trying to avoid their first loss.
CNAN and the Tuckfords will fight it out to see who will have the early edge in the Veterans Division.
Burdettinators will look to keep their perfect record intact when they take on Bare Necessities this week, who are still searching for their first win.
Gridiron Gang will go head-to-head with Forge Flyers this weekend. Forge Flyers are 1-6 against Gridiron Gang, and Gridiron Gang have never lost in week 2.
And lastly, Tom's Tyrants will seek to reaffirm their dominance this week, against an ADRZ team trying to prove they are not the league whipping boys. Now we will update you with some of the headlines in the LOC this week. Probably the biggest news this week is that Gridiron Gang will be without Shane Ferrin until around week 11 due to a dislocated wrist.
This is a huge blow to their RB depth, but they've added Bell, and he was not a starter, so they aren't in trouble yet. Amendola may also be sidelined for a few weeks.
Tom's Tyrants also had a tough pill to swallow this week when it was announced leaving Bell will miss around a month. Look for Williams to fill in for now.
Reggie Bush was also banged up this weekend for the Dream Team, but should be fine for this weekend. However, they will want to monitor his status throughout the season.
Jamal Charles left the game on Sunday, but the news is good for the Toughbirds. He should be fine for this Sunday.
And lastly, Des Bryant had a minor injury on Sunday night, but is going to be fine come Sunday. Stay tuned for Coach Call. We are here with Coach Burdett of the Burdettinators. How's it going, Coach?
Yeah, it's going alright. Looking forward to the second week of the season after coming off a big week 1. So, good things to come.
How does it feel coming into the season, and getting a win in the first game, in the style that you did?
Yeah, it's filled me with a bit more confidence. Like my last couple of seasons I've been dodgy in the first few weeks and finished strong, but if I can put a good finish with a strong finish this year, a good start with a strong finish, then hopefully I can get a bit further than just regular end of season.
Peyton Manning had a monster game for you, but you can't rely on it every week. What do you expect from the team in the coming weeks?
I put up some good scores apart from Manning, and obviously Spiller had a disappointing week, Bryant had a disappointing week, and my DST they did alright, so the core of my team, I reckon it'll do okay. Manning, I'm hoping over 30 points on a fair amount of weeks since he is a top signal caller. But I think if Spiller and Bryant return to last season's form, which I'm expecting they do, then I should be able to put up good numbers on a weekly basis. Maybe not as good as last week, but at least over 100, so.
CJ Spiller disappointed a bit last week. Are you worried?
No, he was up against the Patriots. Bill Belichick, he's got a way of taking out the offense's best player of the game. And in the Bills' offense, Spiller's the only offensive player in the game. But other coaches won't be able to do it as effectively. So I'm no concerns really.
One last question and we'll let you go. How are you feeling about your matchup with Bare Necessities this weekend?
I think it's going to be a close one. I like his team, and I put down earlier that I think he's going to go into the playoffs this year. I've got me and him going to the playoffs from the rookie division this year, so I reckon it could be a close one. It's got to come down to the wire.
Okay, thanks, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
Cheers.
That does it for us here. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck, coaches.
We've been Lindsay Ogden and Frank Sanders. Have a good game, guys.